Good morning, students. Today we'll start with the next unit, Unit 3, Service Business, Chapter 10, Reserve Bank of India. Now, you all know there are so many banks functioning and providing services all over. Okay. Now, what do these banks do? They play an important role in providing finance for various industries and other developmental activities. Okay. There are a number of banks providing various services. Now, among these banks, there are different types of banks I told you. Among these banks, the main bank or the apex bank is the central bank. Okay, every country will have one central bank. It will be the apex bank. Apex means at the topmost, okay, top level. They will control the entire functioning of all the other banks. Okay, now the central bank uh, it is known by different names in different countries. Okay, every country will have one bank as a central bank, which is the apex bank, and it is known by different names in different countries. In our country, in India, the Reserve Bank of India is the central bank. Okay, now the central bank they control the entire banking system in a country, and in India, Reserve Bank of India controls the entire banking system in our country. Okay, now banking service Banking service is the nerve center of the industry and commerce in our country. It is an important one mark question. The banking service is the nerve center. Why do we call it as a nerve center? See, the nerves, they supply the blood to the different parts of the body. Similarly, the bank, they provide financial services and other assistance to the industries, trade and commerce. And that is why we say banking is the nerve center of industry, trade and commerce in a country. Okay, and the stability and growth of a country's economy are the main goal of the central bank. So, the main object of the central bank is for the country's economic development. Okay. Now, we'll see the historical background or historical development of banks in our country. The first bank is the Bank of Hindustan. Bank of Hindustan was the first bank which was established in India in the year 1770, and then it was closed in 1932. Okay. Now, one second. The General Bank of India was established. Then the General Bank of India was established in 1786, and then it came to end or it was closed in 1791. And after that, the Bank of Calcutta was first joint stock bank established in 1806. Then it was renamed as Bank of Bengal in 1809. Okay. Then Bank of Bombay was established in 1840. Then Bank of Madras in 1843. Now there were three presidential banks, that is Bank of Bengal, Bombay and Madras. Now these three banks, these three presidential bank, Presidential Bank of Bengal, Bombay and Madras was merged together. Okay, and it was formed as Imperial Bank of India on 27th January 1921. Okay, these three presidential Bank of Bengal, Bombay and Madras, it was amalgamated or merged together, and it was formed as Imperial Bank of India on 27th January 1921. Now this Imperial Bank of India, they carried out all the functions which the Reserve Bank of India is doing now. Okay, before independence, the Imperial Bank of India, it was it took up all the functions which the central bank is doing now. Okay, all the functions of the central bank was done by the Imperial Bank of India. Now, this Imperial Bank of India, they had their operation only in the urban sectors, and the rural sectors was completely omitted or neglected. And that is why after the independence, okay, the Imperial Bank of India was took over by the government. The government took over the Imperial Bank of India, and it was renamed as State Bank of India. And that is how the State Bank of India came into existence on July 1st, 1955. Okay. Now this introduction part, there are so many 1-mark questions. Inside the book, they may ask so many 1-mark questions. So just go through it line by line and mark all the important words. So State Bank of India came into beginning on July 1st, 1955. Earlier it was known as Imperial Bank of India. Now, we'll just go through the definition of bank, which is given there. According to Banking Regulation Act 1949, banking means accepting for the purpose of lending or investment of deposit of money from the public, repayable on demand or otherwise, and withdrawal by checks, draft, order or otherwise. Now, what does bank do? First, they accept the money from the public. We save our money with the bank. Okay. So, the banks, they accept the money from the public, as the savings. Okay. Now, this money, the bank will not retain with themselves. They will either lend the money to the borrowers, or they may invest this money in some other places where they may get higher rate of returns. Okay. Say for example, if I'm going to deposit some money with the bank will provide me interest. Okay. Say for example, 4% interest. The bank will not retain that money with themselves. They may lend the money to the needy people, needy borrower at a higher rate of interest, and the difference they may earn it as profit, or they may invest that money in some other share market or somewhere else where they will get higher rate of returns. That is how they earn the profit. Okay. Now see the definition here. Banking means accepting. Accepting what? Money. For the purpose. For what do they accept? For the purpose of lending or investment. Of deposit of money. Accepting the deposit of money for the purpose of lending or investment. Okay. Accepting from whom? From the public. Okay. Hope till this you understood. Accepting the deposits of money from the public. For what purpose? For the purpose of lending or investment. Okay. Next, repayable on demand. The bank is liable to repay to the public whenever they demand the money. Okay. That is repayable on demand or otherwise. And withdrawal by checks, draft, order or otherwise. So the public, they may demand the money whenever they want. They will approach the bank and they get the money. That is whenever on demand. Withdrawal by check. They can also withdraw their money. The public can also withdraw their money by check or by using the draft or by any pay order system. Okay. Now go through the definition once again. This is very important question for 3 marks. Okay. According to Banking Regulation Act 1949, banking means accepting deposits of money from public for the purpose of lending or investments, which is repayable on demand, withdrawal by checks, draft, pay order or otherwise. Okay. Next. Origin of RBI. Now I told you before independence, there is Imperial Bank of India. They carried out all the functions of the central bank. Okay. That is you will learn in the next class what are the functions of the central bank. Now, all the functions which was performed by the central bank was carried on by the Imperial Bank of India before independence. Now, uh, the Hilton Young Commission was passed in 1926. Okay, it is also called as the Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance. Now, on the recommendation of this commission, okay, they recommended this to form a separate bank called as a central bank. So what was the recommendation? To create a separate central bank. Now after that, based on that recommendation only, the RBI Act was formed. Okay, as a result, the RBI Act was passed and RBI launched its operations from 1st April 1935. One more question. Okay, now initially, the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, now based on the recommendations of the Hilton Commission, the Reserve Bank of India Act was passed in 1934 and it started its operation with effect from 1st April 1935. Now RBI, initially when it was set up, okay, it has to raise the capital, isn't it? It had a capital of 5 crore rupees. Okay, and this 5 crore share capital was raised by issuing the shares to the private shareholders. It was not the government. It was not under the government. It was fully under the private shareholders shares. Okay, and it had the head office in Kolkata. Okay, and then later on only the head office of the central bank, Reserve Bank of India, was shifted to Mumbai. Earlier it was in Kolkata. Now after independence, the government of India, they passed the Reserve Bank of India Act 1948 and they took over the Reserve Bank of India from the private shareholders after paying the compensation. Okay, I repeat once again. So before independence, now the Reserve Bank of India Act was passed in 1935 and 1934 and it started functioning as Reserve Bank of India with effect from 1st April 1935. At that time, they had a share capital of 5 crore rupees, which was fully owned by the private shareholders. Now, after independence, the government passed the Reserve Bank of India Act 1948 and the government took over the Reserve Bank of India from the private shareholders after paying them the compensation. Okay, and thus it was nationalized and it took this nationalization of Reserve Bank of India took place in 1949 and from 1st January 1949 RBI started working as the government owned bank. Okay, now initially the Reserve Bank of India, they had the head office in Kolkata and then it moved to Mumbai in the year 1937. Definition of central bank. A central bank being generally recognized as a bank which constitutes the apex of the monetary and banking structure of its country and which performs as best as it can in the national economic interest. So I told you it is an apex bank at the top level, at the topmost bank which controls the entire banking system in the country, and the main object of this central bank is to focus on the stability and growth of country's economy. Okay, now do you know, you have two questions here. In the year 1969, 14 banks were nationalized in India. They may ask for 1 mark. How many banks were nationalized? 14 banks. And in 1980, another 6 banks were nationalized. Now NABARD stands for National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development. Okay, and the main object of this bank is for the development of agriculture and other small scale industries. Now these banks, NABARD, they provide credit and other facilities for the development of agriculture and other small scale industries and cottage industries. Okay, now we have finished till the origin of banks. Okay, so till this you just go through line by line. There are so many inside questions which will be asked in your public exam. Okay, now students, make a note of all the important points. Banking service is a nerve center of industry and commerce in a country. Okay, every nation has one central bank. It is owned by the government of the country. A central bank is set up as an autonomous or quasi-autonomous body. Stability and growth are the main goal of central bank. In India, the Reserve Bank of India is the central bank. Bank of Hindustan was the first bank in India, established in 1970. The General Bank of India was established in 1786. Bank of Calcutta was the first joint stock bank. Bank of Bengal 1809, Bank of Bombay 1840, Bank of Madras 1843. These banks are called as the presidential banks, amalgamated, which was merged together. All these three banks was merged together in 1921. After independence, an act was passed in the parliament to take over the Imperial Bank of India by the government, and SBI came into existence. So before independence, the Imperial Bank of India, the functions of all the central banks, the functions of the central bank was done by the Imperial Bank of India before independence. Now after independence, the Imperial Bank of India, it was renamed as the State Bank of India, and the State Bank of India came into existence on July 1st, 1955. Then you have the bank definition, which I have already explained to you. Okay, then just go through the chart which is given in your textbook. What are the different types of banks? Okay, then origin of Reserve Bank of India. In 1926, the Hilton Young Commission was passed. It was also known as the Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance. They made a recommendation to create a separate central bank for our country. Now, after that, as a result of that recommendation, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 was passed, and the Reserve Bank of India, it started its operations with effect from 1st April 1935. Now, after independence, the Government of India passed the Reserve Bank of India Act 1948 and took over RBI after paying appropriate compensation to the private shareholders. So, before independence, the Reserve Bank of India, the entire shares were under the private shareholders. Now, after independence, after the passing of the Act, Reserve Bank of India Act, the government took over the RBI by paying the compensation to the private shareholders. Now, from January 1st, 1949, RBI started functioning as the government-owned Central Bank of India.